this is Jackie K, and welcome for another editorial here on the Pokemon Go Fireside chat. I have a special episode today, also known as Jackie K talks way too much about Mega Evolutions. In a normal situation, the past episode you saw on Mega Evolutions would be divided into two episodes. Considering my editorials are usually 20 to 30 minutes long, as is, in any other situation, I would have easily divided all this into 3 podcasts rather than 2. However, I have no idea when they're going to release Mega Evolutions, and the first 2 halves, especially the second half that gives you recommendations of what Mega Evolutions you should keep your eyes out for, are much more likely to become out of date rather than this part where I just am going to speculate on some of my favorite Mega Evolutions that may not be viable for battling, but I think are interesting to talk about for other reasons. That said, there's still a few Mega Evolutions that are really viable that I unfortunately had to skip, only because I could think of at least 1 or 2 other Mega Evolution Pokemon that were technically stronger than them, even if the ones that I skip are a lot more accessible. Big case being Mega Salamence, which I only really skipped because Mega Rayquaza outshines it in every shape and form due to having the same exact typing, and the Mega Evolution stats being way kinder to Rayquaza, if only because of just how huge its stats already were before Mega Evolution. Mega Salamence is no joke either though, and you're much more likely to have a Salamence ready to go for Mega Evolution than you would be a Rayquaza, thanks to Community Day. That being said, if you missed out on Community Day, you may not really get the most out of Mega Salamence due to Outrage really being what makes Mega Salamence shine, or Salamence in general I should say, but it's being a Community Day exclusive move. Another interesting thing about Mega Salamence, which unfortunately probably won't make the transition to Pokemon Go, is this ability called Aerialite, or Aerial. Forget the exact wording, but it makes normal type moves into flying type moves, which gives it access to quite a few powerful flying type moves that most Pokemon wouldn't have. There's actually a lot of abilities in Gen 6 that had a similar effect to this, and we'll probably come across 1 or 2 more of those as I cover other Mega Evolutions. That said, Latios and Latias also getting Mega Evolutions, so you can imagine how they also got outshined by both Rayquaza and Mewtwo, but the unique typing of Dragon Psychic could make them interesting choices in certain Master League. So, with that, I've covered all the top 10 CP Mega Evolution Pokemon at this point. I kind of glossed over Mega Gyarados, so I want to put it in the spotlight again. It probably would be the most powerful water type because it does have the strongest, or should I say the highest CP out of all water types, even compared to Mega Swampert. However, going off the logic that Mega Swampert will have Hydro Cannon, while Gyarados' most powerful water type move is Hydro Pump, it's safe to say that Swampert will still outpace Mega Gyarados, but still. Similar story with Mega Gengar. As I said in the previous part, it will be the most powerful ghost type after its Mega form, and depending on when this is released, will have or already have had a community data giving it access to Shadow Punch. I'm pretty sure Shadow Ball still gets better DPS, but Shadow Punch may result in it having some interesting PvP options. We'll have to wait and see. Some fun extra trivia. On top of its stats, something that made Mega Gengar incredibly powerful to the point of being banned from OU in the single player competitive scene was an ability that it gained. It's called Shadow Tag, and essentially it keeps you from swapping out. So if Mega Gengar comes onto the field, you have a Gengar, and then Mega evolves to gain the Shadow Tag ability, your opponent can't swap, so if they're in a disadvantage, they're just screwed. With how vital switching is to the Pokemon series, you can see how this ability alone could make it pretty broken. Now to get into some of the more fun Mega Evolutions, not necessarily good, just want to give a quick shout out to Mega Aggron. Probably won't be good in Pokemon Go, if only because we have Metagross with a Mega Evolution, but I do gotta give it props for making Aggron significantly better than it was before. For one, it goes from being a steel rock type to just a pure steel type, taking away its major weakness to ground type. In addition, say it with me people, in the main series games, Mega Audino gained an ability called Filter, which essentially canceled out anything that it would normally be weak to. Actually, negate is too strong of a word, but it does result in it taking less damage than if it didn't have Filter. These two aspects make Aggron a lot more tanky than it was before its Mega Evolution, and while since Mega Evolution is tied to one Pokemon per battle in the main series games, there's very infrequently an opportunity to use Mega Aggron when there's so many more powerful Mega Evolutions in the game. I did use Mega Aggron a couple times back when I was into the competitive scene in Gen 5 or Gen 6. And it was a fun Pokemon to use. Just the concept of taking your weakness and not taking as much damage from it is a cool concept in and of itself. And Mr. Mime's family, as far as I'm aware, is the only other Pokemon that has this filter ability in the main series games, so it's a fairly unique Pokemon from that aspect alone. Are you catching on to the theme of this episode and why I'm more okay with this being outdated than everything else I've recorded up to this point? Yeah, I'm just here to have fun at this point. On the tangent of abilities, I want to backpedal back to Mega Heracross real quick, because it had a pretty fun ability called Skilling, which in the main series game there were some moves that could attack anywhere from 2 to 5 times. They were usually weaker power, but being able to do it 5 times in a row added up to an amazing amount of power. But there was a lot of luck involved to it. Skill Link allowed those types of moves to hit 5 times every time. And on the tangent of Pokemon I want to give a shout out to, just because I like them, Mega Ampharos. Oh man, Mega Ampharos was just the Mega I was looking for. Like, Ampharos has already become quite a bit of a personal meme, just from the way I played it out in the very first playthrough I've done on YouTube. And it just feels like that Mega Evolution just amplifies everything about the meme, just making him more manly and just Super Saiyan hair, and just, it was almost destined to be. There is something spiffly about Mega Ampharos that I actually want to talk about mechanically though, and that's his ability Mold Breaker. Again, probably won't make it to Pokemon Go, and probably, even if they were to implement abilities in Pokemon Go, this probably be one of the less useful abilities to have in that particular game, but it certainly had an interesting role in the main series games. Not to mention, Ampharos also gained a Dragon subtype, but I'll get back on that. Mold Breaker, simply put, is an ability that allows you to ignore the effects of other abilities. Easiest example of this is that there's an ability that essentially gives a Pokemon an immunity to ground type moves. If a Pokemon with Mold Breaker attacks that Pokemon with something like Earthquake, Earthquake would still hit the Pokemon, when in any other situation, it would be able to avoid Earthquake. But it goes so much deeper than that, but it's hard to explain without, literally giving you an entire history lesson of everything about the main series competitive scene. But just keep in mind that particular example, and you might be able to piece together just how useful it would be to have an ability that essentially ignores other abilities. To tangent back to the subject of talking about abilities similar to Salamance's ability, both Mega Swablu, or should I say Altaria, Mega Gardevoir, Mega Galley, they all have abilities that turn normal type moves into a move of a type that they have. For the fairy types, that would be turn the normal type moves into fairy type moves. And for Galley, which is an ice type, it turns those normal type moves into ice types. A fun thing to do with that, Galley can learn Explosion, a very powerful normal type move that's essentially a bomb, where you do a massive amount of damage but KO yourself. Refrigerate turns that into an ice type move, so you can imagine going from a pretty powerful normal type move that doesn't do super effective damage to anything, turning it into a move that could devastate dragon, flying, grass types. Gardevoir has some similar fun things, where it has a move called Hyper Voice, which is normally a normal type move, but because it's sound based, it allows it to do special things, like go past certain barriers and other things like that. Its Mega form essentially turns that into a powerful fairy type move. And honestly, it was one of the more powerful fairy type moves that Gardevoir had access to, which was a plus. Let's see, Low Bunny also has an interesting ability it gains when it Mega Evolves. It's a normal type Pokemon normally, but when it Mega Evolves, it does gain a fighting subtype. Sure, cool. Normal type is okay, but doesn't have anything that is strong against, so at least can hit super effective damage and get stabbed with certain things with its fighting subtype. But it also has an ability called Scrappy. In case you don't know, a major weakness of both normal and fighting types is the fact that in the main series games they do nothing against ghost type Pokemon. Pokemon Gold are heavily resisted. If Scrappy was in Pokemon Go, they'd be able to hit the ghost types with both normal and fighting type moves for neutral damage. So no more sending in your Gengar to just absorb an incoming close combat or something similar to that effect. Sharpedo gains an ability that plays specifically into its strengths. It's a shark, it can bite things. It has an ability that's pretty much custom made for that. Strong Jaw is an ability that increases the power of biting type moves, so like Bite would become more powerful, Ice Fang would become more powerful. It's practically made for this Pokemon. I think at the time it was, and it wasn't until later generations that other Pokemon besides Mega Sharpedo gained access to this ability. Plus, Sharpedo is just one of those fun Pokemon that you could play around with the ability it had before and after it Mega evolved. A favorite strategy of competitive players that use Sharpedo was to use a move called Protect to pretty much negate damage for that first turn. So its ability Speed Boost could kick in, allowing it to go faster and attack before certain types of Pokemon. And then they Mega Evolve to hit with a heavy Pokemon that's already gained some speed to outspeed things and attack before Pokemon normally couldn't, with increased attack for its Bite and Ice Fang and similar moves. Also want to give a shout out to Mega Medicham. Its type doesn't change, its ability doesn't really change. It does have an interesting ability though. Like the whole reason its CP is so low is because it has an ability specifically made to boost its stats. So, or to give it more attack in general. So it's a lot stronger than it looks in the main series games. But I specifically want to bring up Mega Medicham because depending on how they calculate the CP for Megas, like if Mega Evolution for some reason turns into something that you permanently can evolve into, a maxed out, like Perfect IVs, leveled up all the way it can, is right underneath 2500, the CP cap for Ultra League. So I have a feeling if Mega Evolutions get implemented in that way, that Mega Medicham could do to Ultra League what normal Medicham has done to Great League. And on the topic of Pokemon that could do interesting things because they max out so close to 2500, last and probably least, but I am biased, so I am going to bring it up anyways, is Mega Audino. Yes, that Mega Evolution that everyone who's seen it goes, why? Why did this Pokemon gain a Mega Evolution? Well, I am here because I am biased, so I will, and this is my podcast at this point, you got all your factual information in the last episode. I am gonna try my hardest to defend this Pokemon. Because I like Audino. I'll admit a lot of my love for Audino just comes from the people I watch liking Audino, but that's a story for another time. I'm gonna get the worst stuff out of the way. I won't hide behind rose-tinted glasses. Mega Audino does have some of the worst CP out of all Mega Evolution Pokemon. It does get a CP slightly higher than Medicham, but not by much. A perfect one maxes out at 2525 CP. So in that case, it's a little worse than Medicham, because Medicham at least maxes out under the CP limit. The only other things that Mega Audino has more CP than is Mawile and Sableye. Ironically enough, Mawile and Mega Sableye actually have use in the main series games because of that. I don't think Audino is as bad as people make it out to be, but it is undeniable that every Mega Evolution besides Mega Audino is better. So when you can only have one Mega Evolution per battle, you can't exactly blame people for not going for it. The thing is, Audino is meant to be a healer support Pokemon. That's why its ability doesn't change when it Mega Evolves. It has a really low CP despite being Mega Evolved because most of the stats that it gains from Mega Evolution don't go into attack. They go into other things like HP and defense to make it even more bulky, etc., etc. Now that I've laid out all the flaws to assure that I'm trying to boost up this Pokemon as fairly as possible, let's go into how we can make Mega Audino a good Pokemon. Or should I say the things that are good about Audino. 1, it goes from being a pure normal type to a normal fairy type. A pretty unique typing in Pokemon Go. From my recollection, up to this point there's no other Pokemon that has the normal fairy typing, and I can't recall any Pokemon in future generations that have it. I'll admit though, Gen 6 is kind of where my Pokemon knowledge gets a little fuzzy. I just stopped clinging to Pokemon as much after Generation 5. I guess Generation 6 would be more fair. I stopped renumbering Pokemon around Gen 6, but the Mega Evolutions kind of made artificially extend my interest in the Pokemon series one extra generation. Point being though, Fairy type, good. Any Pokemon that Mega Evolves and gets a Fairy subtyping is good because Fairy types don't have a lot of representation. Problem, Altaria also gains a Fairy type when it Mega Evolves, and Mega Gardevoir exists and is significantly better than Audino, not only in stats, but in also having a Fairy Quick move. More on that later. The reason that I wanted to focus on Audino, why I think that there's one possible place for Audino to shine, is because of his CP being so close to 2500. It goes a little over, but what's stopping it from not powering up one time? Azumarill technically has a max CP that goes over the 1500 limit, and yet it has claimed a place in the Hall of Fame in Great League PvP. To list off the pros of being able to use Audino for the Ultra League, as I said, a lot of the reasons why a CP is so low despite Mega Evolving is because a lot of those stats go into HP and defense. Another thing I want to give to Audino is that I think Normal Fairy is the perfect type combination for Ultra League. There's a lot of Dragon types prominent around. The normal typing gives it a resistance against Ghost type moves. The Fairy typing gives it the best resistance against Dragon type moves, making it, in theory, a hard counter to Giratina. In addition, this typing is also neutral to Fighting type moves and resists Dark type moves, which is perfect for countering Obstagoon. Unfortunately, I try my best to defend it, but we would need a major move pool rework for Audino in order to make it the Ultra League Pokemon of my dreams. Its quick moves are Zen Headbutt and Pound, and while I guess Zenbutt would be interesting coverage, and actually I gotta double check how good Pound is because I've heard something about it, but it's a normal type move when what Audino really needs is a Fairy type move. And I don't think you can actually learn Charm in the main series games, so I might leave that out of the question. Then again, we are kind of overdue for more Fairy type moves. We've gone so long without Charm at all, and before then, there was no Fairy type moves at all. So if we could somehow get a Fairy type version of Dragon Breath or something like that in Audino, that alone could buff up Mega Audino's potential significantly. Its charge moves are Dazzling Gleam, Disarming Voice, and Hyper Beam. At least it gets Fairy charge type moves, but Hyper Beam's not that great of a move in Pokemon Go PvP, and I'm not quite sure how much better either of the fairy moves it learns are, but at least it gets fairy charge type moves, or fairy type charge moves. TBH, no, this is all going under the assumption that Mega Evolutions are permanent and aren't something that are calculated. The CP for Mega Evolution is something that's calculated as you Mega Evolve within the battle. But if that is the case, I could definitely see it shaking up the Great League meta for similar reasons. But let's give Mega Audino the love it deserves. Ah, shoot, there was one more Pokemon. I promise this is the last one that I wanted to cover. Mostly because we'll probably never hear about it in Pokemon Go. But it's had an interesting history in the competitive scene of the main series games. And that would be Mega Kangaskhan. It does get a nice CP boost, where a maxed out Mega Kangaskhan has a CP of 3,851, like 3,851. Same CP as Mega Charizard X, only a little bit under Sceptile. Bit underwhelming when we have normal legendary Pokemon that exceed the 4,000 CP range. But the thing that really makes Kangaskhan busted is his ability. For a little more context, when Mega Kangaskhan evolves, the Mega Evolution more so affects the child. It grows up, gets a lot tougher, and hops out of his parents' pouch to fight right alongside the mother. And Parental Bond is reflective of that. It essentially turns any move that Kangaskhan has into a multi-hit move. So, the big catch is that it's not at the full strength of the first move. In the game that was first released, it would only do half the damage of the original move, but considering how much chaos that it caused in the competitive scene, in future generations it got nerfed down to 25%. But yeah, especially when it was back at doing one full attack and then doing that same attack right afterwards with 50% of the power of the original attack, that really wrecked the scenes in competitive play, both in the single format and the double format. I imagine even more so in the single format because there were some speculation or some restrictions on Parental Bond, that such as if the move would normally hit multiple Pokemon, the ability wouldn't activate. Oh yeah, I just remembered what really made this move busted. A specific move that you may know for how it used to be busted in Pokemon Go, Power Up Punch. Imagine doing 2 Power Up Punches in a row and getting the stats boost, increasing your attack for both of those Power Up Punches. Yeah, there was other things that made Parental Bond busted, but having essentially an access to a double attack boost at your pleasure did not help matters in the slightest. If I actually did my research in advance and actually refreshed myself on the history of how I completely wrecked the competitive scene, I could go a little bit more into it, but I just wanted to bring up that trivia if nothing else. Fun. I almost have another half-hour recording, but at least I guess I don't have to worry about recording a podcast for a couple weeks. Thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed me just rambling on about Mega Evolutions that we probably won't see come to fruition in Pokemon Go, but had interesting effects in the main series games, show the support on whatever platform you're watching on. High reviews help me out in the podcast scene, the liking, commenting feedback, and subbing, all that helps on the YouTube scene, and it's all appreciated. If you want to see more that I do, be sure to check out the show notes / description to see my site, where I have everything I do online organized. I think I've spent most of my day just talking about Mega Evolution, so I'm gonna go get some rest.